Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 27.
Congratulations, you showed up. Give yourself a high five in celebration of your success. Welcome to the Cashflow Diary, where new and experienced investors come to take confident action towards their goals. Your host is a family man, a real estate entrepreneur, investor, coach, and instructor. As a master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's Cashflow 101 game, he's inspired many to begin their journey into creating cash flow for themselves and their family. And now, here he is to offer you the tools required to earn the income desired. Your cash flow coach, Jay Massey.
Well, hello there. Welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. Glad that you are here. For those of you joining us for the first time, make sure you download the first episode to understand a little bit more about myself, the background of the show, if that so interests you. And in the meantime, for those of you looking for a way to go out there and earn some money really, really quickly, feel free to pick up our free e-course. It's learninvestingnow.com, where we go through the process of what is called wholesaling. It's the strategy that I started out with when I started real estate. And what's interesting about it is it requires little to no none of your own money or credit, because that was necessary. If you listen to the first episode, you understand that I started in a situation where I was squatting in bank-owned property, and I had a credit score of 398 and literally no cash. But even so, with all of those challenges and more, we were able to get started in real estate. So if you want that, feel free to go over to learninvestingnow.com, place your email in the box, and go ahead and get started. For those of you who may not already have the phone number, feel free to write it down now. It's 800-689-1764. Feel free to call in with questions or comments or things that you think that are awesome that you learned from a particular episode. We would love to hear more of that from all of you guys all across the world. Thank you for those of you who are actually emailing and or sending in your comments and questions. We definitely appreciate that. And lastly but not least, if you haven't already, please feel free to go over to iTunes and leave us a positive comment about the show. In fact, if you do so, what you will be able to obtain is a free 30 days of our premium membership, which gives you additional content, additional information, additional video and audio and training that I've already done from my live events, etc., that teach you all manners of not only just wholesaling, but the apartment investing, as well as raising capital and all the techniques that I use for that as well. Anyway, let's get this episode going. So one of the things that I like to start this episode off with is a quote. Our quote for this episode is as follows: "We keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things, because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths." That came to us from a Mr. Walt Disney. Yes, the happiest place on earth kind of guy. And what I like about that is, first of all, is we keep moving forward. I know that there have been times in my career and in the career of others where you run into roadblocks and things get challenging and difficult, and you want to stop and think, hey, we need to slow down and just hang out for a minute. And then 1 minute turns into an hour, and an hour turns into 2 days, and 2 days turns into 20 weeks, and 20 weeks turns into 20 years. And before you know it, you're still in the same place. But if you keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things, because that's the other thing, is that you can't just sit behind. You can move forward in circles, right? But if you don't open a new door, you don't go to a new place, you don't experience new things. Don't let yourself get comfortable, because we're curious. And that's the thing that I love. Yeah, let your curiosity take you to new places, because I know it has taken me to many, many new places. In fact, that's what you're going to hear on this particular episode, is a new place where I technically still am at this exact moment. However, I recorded an interview with one of the top real estate agents here, where I am currently on the island. And if you've ever seen the show House Hunters International, You probably have already, quote unquote, met him, but if not, that's okay. You get to listen to who a guy who's becoming a good friend of mine, Mr. Dennis K. And he lives on the island of Ambergris Key in I should say, in the country of Belize. If you don't know where that is, that's okay. Feel free to look it up. That's part of your real estate trivia, right? Where is it? And one of the things that I truly enjoy about being a real estate person is that you get to go new places, you get to try new things, you get to do things that you would never do in any other position simply because it's all real estate. And we keep opening new doors and seeing new places. So, one of the things I want you to hear in this particular episode are some of the things that, regardless of location, keywords, regardless of location, some of the things that are still necessary, some of the fundamentals that are required for you and I to go out there and be successful inside of real estate. Okay? So let's get this interview started. So you've spent a lot of time educating people on...
Yeah, one of the things that I spend a lot of time educating people on is the country of Belize itself. So here's the typical email I get. Dennis, I'm looking for a condo that I can buy, use a couple months of the year, and then put some sort of rental pool. I have $200,000 or $300,000 to spend. What do you have for me?
Right.
I mean, that's the worst email any real estate agent can get, because they're looking at the entire country of Belize. It's like a real estate agent in New York City saying, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom condo. What do you have?
Right.
I mean, imagine that for the whole United States.
Yes.
So the reason I've come up with my ebook, my relocation investment guide, is to help educate people on the country of Belize and which parts are going to meet their goals.
Oh.
Because they're looking at an entire country. They don't realize that Belize is very diverse. I mean, you got Mayan villages with no running water, no power, up to places like Ambergris Key where you have, $2 or $3 million homes and everything in between. The biggest mistake people make when they look at Belize is start to look at actual real estate. They get on real estate websites, they look at condos, look at homes, and that's the worst place to look, because it tells you nothing about the area, the occupancy rates, the draw, the tourism. And I get this all the time. They say, Dennis, I can go to Corozal or Punta Gorda or Cayo and I can get real estate half the price as what I can get in Ambergris Key.
Right.
I said, yeah, you can, but who goes to Corozal? Who goes to Punta Gorda? What is the draw of those areas? If there's nobody there now, why would you think that area is going to grow in the future? So I tell people you have to look at the path of progress and see if the area that you want to buy has the type of flow through in terms of capital and tourism and vacationers in order to make an area grow. There's areas of the mainland right now where I can get you, 1,000 acres of jungle for probably $10,000, and you know what? 20 years from now, it's still going to be jungle and inaccessible.
I could film my own movie there.
Exactly. And you know what? For doomsday preppers, I love the show Doomsday Preppers, because if you're looking to prepare for the end of the world and don't want to be bothered, then I can sell you things like that.
Yeah, there you
go.
But
if you're looking for things like having people come down and actually rent your unit,
running water,
and also things to do. I'll give you an example.
Yes.
Take a condo on Ambergris Key. Let's say it's oceanfront, $400,000. A nice new condo, right?
Okay.
That condo will rent very well, because when a person comes down to vacation, first of all, they want beachfront. They want access to snorkeling and diving and fishing. They want to go to nice restaurants, right?
Yes.
So Ambergris Key has that draw.
There is a little bit of that here.
Yeah, exactly. you can go down to places like Placencia and Hopkins and different areas like that. You might be able to get the same condo for 30% less. But what is the draw? First of all, your rental rates are going to be lower because there's not a high demand in that area. Also, your access to things like snorkeling, diving, and fishing are very far from land. There's sometimes a half-hour, 45-minute boat ride compared to 4 or 5-minute boat ride here. So what I tell people is look at the occupancy rates of the area that you want to buy. Ambergris Key has experienced a 53% increase in tourism over the past 36 months.
Nice.
That is incredible, especially during the recession.
I know I'm back for the second time. It's very, very beautiful here. Very, very beautiful.
Yeah, so you got to look at that. Look at where people are going today. Now, what a lot of developers do, especially on the mainland, is they buy up large sections of the mainland at dirt cheap prices, because you can get acreage very cheap. They'll hire a architect or a planner to sort of lay out how pretty this area is going to look, and they'll start selling lots with the hope of someday in the future this will become something. And sadly to say, a lot of people buy into that dream, and they purchase property down there thinking, you know what, it's so cheap, someday in the future, that area might become something. If it's not something now, there's a reason for it. It's because it doesn't have what people are looking for. And I'm not saying different areas don't open up, right? Like here on Ambergris Caye, we have some sections of the islands that are definitely opening up and becoming more attractive because infrastructure is going in, things like that. But still, you have close proximity to what most people want, and that's accessibility to the reef, snorkeling, diving, fishing, sailing, all those sorts of things. Whereas in the mainland, you would never have accessibility to those things. So I guess that's sort of in a nutshell a lot of the education that I have to do with clients.
Got it. So say for the first time, for the brand new person considering going offshore for the first time, and looking, what are like the top 5 things that they need to be aware of? What's the buyer beware signs when coming to an international place that says you might want to double check just, what have you seen where most of the buyers made that initial mistake?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jay. Again, the place that most people start looking on the internet is with real estate. And that, again, is the worst place to look. I get all sorts of clients saying, Dennis, I'm trying to compare Belize to Costa Rica, to the DR, to Thailand, because they have options.
Right.
And if someone's looking to move offshore, they feel, the entire world is my oyster. I can go anywhere you want. Well, if it's just for pure pleasure, sure. You can buy beautiful real estate in any part of the world and enjoy it. But if you're buying for investment, there's a certain set of criteria that you should look at. For example, number 1 is the government.
I see.
If you buy, I don't care how beautiful the island or the country is, if you buy in an area where the government is not stable, then your investment is not stable, obviously. Gotcha. Look to see what the government is based on. Like here in Belize, it's based on British common law. It's familiar with us in the United States, familiar to Canadians, still part of the British Commonwealth. It's not based on Napoleonic law, like Honduras and Panama, and some of the other Central American countries that have gotten a lot of press in the last 10, 15 years. So look at the government, make sure the government's stable, make sure it's pro-investment. A lot of governments aren't pro-investment. They claim to be, but when you look at the laws, they give more protections to their own citizens owning property than they do to expats. Here in Belize, everyone's treated equal. Your foreigners owning property are not differentiated at all between your locals owning property. So I think that's important. Another thing is English speaking. A lot of people don't give this any thought, but for instance, if you're an investor, you have rental properties and you're very successful. If you were to go down to a place like Costa Rica or Panama and buy up apartment buildings, you'd have to be fluent in Spanish. There'd be no way around it, right?
Small challenge there.
Can you imagine you walking and checking on your apartment buildings and your renters, always having to have a translator and trying to communicate with your lease agreements, with your rental agreements, all that type of paperwork, constantly having to have it translated. And what if you miss something, right? You're counting on other people to do your homework for you. So in that sense, it makes sense that you purchase in an area where English is not just spoken, but also that it's the official language. So for instance, I just had a client in here a half hour ago. He signed an agreement for sale. 3-page document, read it simply, signed it, we presented the offer, it was accepted. All right, that happened in about 15, 20 minutes. There was no translation, nothing to get lost. He wasn't nervous about, okay, now, what does this mean or what is that? So he feels very comfortable investing here. When I take him into the closing company, the Enrique de Leon of Capital Corporate Services, he's going to speak English.
Nice.
The banker, Flor Nunez, she's going to speak English as the official language, not as I speak English too.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. The funny thing is that I just came from Cancun. It was the first time I went there, and I had such an interesting experience just trying to ask for simple things like the directions, where's the bathroom, and how to get coffee and order food. And I started thinking about it going, if I moved offshore, if I'm having this kind of trouble ordering food, what happens when I have an asthma attack? Or what happens when something is hurting internally? And how do I describe that? And how do I live? So I'm just kind of curious, when it comes to things like medical services, is that one of the concerns that someone should have when looking over, offshore for the first time, either if they're going to move there or for rental?
Absolutely, Jay. I'm glad you brought that up. Let me just take that question in a couple steps. First of all, what you mentioned is exactly what people experience, is that when they go on vacation, it's sort of fun to try to order your beers or your food in another language, right? It's part of the experience of a vacation. It's a lot different when you live there or when you try to do business there. And as far as medical, I'll give you my personal experience. About a year and a half ago, my wife woke up with severe stomach pains, just excruciating. And I didn't know what to do. I thought she was dying. So I rushed her into a doctor here on the island. They performed an immediate, what do you call it when they scan your stomach with a little sonogram, right? Sonogram,
sure.
you know?
I don't know.
And it showed up that she had a severe gallbladder attack with a lot of stones, and she needed emergency surgery. And so I flew over to the mainland, took her to a private hospital in Urban City, and I sat with the surgeon who spoke English. I sat with the anesthesiologist, you know, talked with the nurses. I signed our consent forms. Our entire stay in the hospital was made so much more comfortable because everyone spoke English. I couldn't imagine if that happened to us in a country where we didn't know the language. For instance, we travel a lot to Europe. I love spending time in France. But I shudder to think if that same experience would have happened in France, how much more anxiety we would have had.
Yeah.
To end up, she was successfully operated on. They did it laparoscopically. It was a very successful operation. And that taught me a lot about when you're looking to move somewhere and live somewhere, how important it is that you communicate with doctors and surgeons, because chances are as we get older, I mean, we have a young population that's buying here. We have a young investor group. But our population that are retirees, the baby boomers, they're up in their 50s and 60s. And if they're going to be spending the majority of the year here, they want to know they have access to good medical care and that they can communicate when they need to.
Got it.
All right. Now, that's the first part of our episode. Hopefully, you've been able to learn a few things, and you probably noticed that the audio quality is a little bit different on this particular episode. We're experimenting with the idea of the recording on location, those types of things. And what you're hearing in the background is progress. That's a lot of the progress, a lot of the construction, a lot of the things that are actually going on the island. And it's amazing to watch and to see and to participate in. And hopefully that adds something to this particular episode for you. But if not, please forgive us. Let us know. You know, so at the end of the day, just trying to bring you the most relevant information that we possibly can when it comes to learning how to build cash flow, because it is a process, but hopefully you're beginning to hear some of the things that are necessary in order to make that happen. And at the end of the day, you can see some of the things that even though you may not be in the country of Belize, that you still need to apply to your existing portfolio today. All right. Last time we had a question. I want to make sure that we get to the answer of that question so that the individuals who have sent in their answers know that they have absolutely won the book. And for those of you who don't know, I've got a new book on the way out. It is my cash flow creation system. And basically what it teaches you is my entire business model from beginning to end, starting with wholesaling, multifamily, as well as raising capital, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you, for answering the question, if you get the answer right, email or call us, you get a copy of the book signed by me. Awesome, right? You're like, no, don't sign it. Just give me the book. I understand. Anyway, last time the question was as follows. What does ROE mean? ROE. That was it. I just want to know what those three letters mean. Now, sometimes we are very familiar with the letters ROI, as I talked about last time. I wanted to know what ROE stood for, and the answer is return on equity. What ends up happening is that after you've made your down payment or your initial investment, what you begin to become is an equity manager. Hopefully, you're building it over time. Who knows? Because it depends on what type of loan structure you're using and what other financing you have in place, of whether or not you're building equity or you're forcing equity to happen or you're phasing equity. There are a number of ways to, quote unquote, create equity. And it all depends on what your strategy is. I mean, there's no one right way. There's no one wrong way. It's just, which one are you the highest and best skilled at or want to become the highest and best skilled at in your particular neighborhood to make things happen. Now, this week's question, only because I want to make sure that you have a shot at truly grasping where I am. It's very simple. The country of Belize is currently 32 years old. What was it called before it became Belize? So, The country of Belize is currently only 32 years old. What was it called before it became Belize? Feel free to send in your answer to cashflowquestion@cashflowdiary.com or call it in at 800-689-1764. And if you are the winner, make sure that whether you're the winner or not, make sure you just send in your address because it's kind of hard to send you a book through the email or something. So we need to know that too. But we will definitely be in contact with you, letting you know that you are indeed the winner, so that you can get your autographed copy of the book, Cash Flow Creation System. For those of you looking for more information about the book in and of itself, you can just go to cashflowcreationsystem.com. All right, enough of that. Let us get back to the interview with Dennis K.
So let's say we've covered a little bit about if I'm living here. Say all I want to do is, have some of my funds exit the country that I'm in and be able to have those funds make money offshore inside of real estate as rental property, vacation ownership. You've been here for a while. So what is, if that's my only concern, is medical services, or is that still important? What are the important, like 3 or 5 things that I need to know to make sure that, okay, this is the international country for me?
Right. I think it was Robert Helms that said, "Live where you want to live, but invest where the numbers make sense."
Yeah, exactly.
Is it Robert? Okay.
Right.
I looked at that and it made so much sense to me. I love living here,
Yeah.
but it's not for everybody.
Sure.
I mean, it can be hot, some of the year. Some people don't appreciate our sandy roads. Some people don't care about the water.
Yeah, right.
That being said, I would say a good 40% of my clientele has no desire to not even come to Belize to live, but they don't even have a desire to visit. I mean,
wow.
They're viewing Belize as like a stock option or just another investment, just like in the States. Robert Kiyosaki, he advises buying in whatever city you can get the highest return. No matter what the property looks like. What I find down here is that people are buying property from me. Most of my sales are over the internet. I very rarely see my clients face to face. I very rarely have a phone call with them. Most of my communication is over the internet. And about 40% of my clientele are buying property sight unseen from me just based on the return. So they don't care what Belize looks like. They don't care if they ever visit. They will eventually because
Sure.
this always gives them an excuse to see what they bought. But if the numbers make sense, they view it just as another one of their investments. Like when you buy a stock in a foreign company in China, you don't necessarily fly to China to look at your stock paper.
No.
Right? So they view it as the same thing here in Belize. What I recommend, though, is that investors don't try to cheat the system. Kind of go around a realtor's back and think that they're going to get a better deal, buying from a local 101, or try to come down and get some sort of inside scoop that they think they can get, because then you get burned. I've seen people get burned down here, just like in any business transaction. You try to sidestep your lawyer's advice or go without your accountant, or you're going to get hurt. So come down here, work with a reputable company. John Turley and I, we owned our own real estate company for several years down here, and then teamed up with RE/MAX because RE/MAX has the branding, the name recognition, makes our clients feel comfortable. And because of that, we're also held to a different standard.
Sure.
A lot of the local real estate companies on an island don't have any formal training. They're not licensed. They might be good people, nice to work with, but they're not necessarily held to the same standards that a company like ours is. So I would say do your homework, look at actual numbers, and don't buy because the real estate agent is hyped up on a certain property. Make sure that the property is a good buy and it does return the numbers that you're looking at.
Absolutely. I like that. I like how the fundamentals are the same. And hopefully for those of you listening, you hear that the fundamentals are the same. No matter the location, you still got to make sure certain things are in place in order for people to want to rent from you, live there, etc. There are things that drive markets, and they're everywhere. They can be seen, and it's clear. Even though it's a foreign country, they still have attorneys. I guess we couldn't get rid of them, but that's okay because they all have a purpose. But the point is listen to your advisors because they're there to protect you. They're there to help you. And what we have is a realtor's one of those advisors that's so important, especially when you're going somewhere you've never been, to begin to understand the lay of the land, how it works, what areas are the paths of progress. And as you can hear, Dennis here has been here for quite a while, knows a lot about where he is. And if you've never been to La Isla Bonita, you need to come because it is absolutely wonderful. I tell you, I love what I get to do and travel places like this because I would not even imagine that places like this on Earth still exist. So, Dennis, one more thing. I've got to know, why did you move here?
That's a good question. I don't know how much time you have on your podcast. All right. There's a couple things,
okay,
Jay. First of all, I was living what many would consider the American dream. I had a nice boat in front of my house, lived in a beautiful home on the water on Lake Michigan, or Lake Huron actually, in Michigan. Had the Cadillac in the driveway and the convertible, and I was working a lot. You have to work a lot to pay for those sort of privileges in the United States,
right,
especially in a nice area. So I remember working my butt off. And one Saturday afternoon, because I had to work on a Saturday, I came home and it was 3 p.m, and I opened the door to my home and I looked, and my friends were sitting on my beach. I wasn't home, okay, I was working, sitting on my beach, and they had gotten into my wine cellar and were drinking my wine and enjoying my house. And I looked at my wife, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I was like, I have to find a way to enjoy life instead of working to have things just for things' sake. I said, we're going to go somewhere. And we're going to enjoy it now, because at that time I thought, I'm going to work hard. Then when I turn 55, I'm going to retire and sail the Caribbean. I said, we're not waiting. And at the same time, some of my closest friends were at retirement age, but their health didn't allow them to go places anywhere like they would like to. They had too many ties. So I thought, let's go somewhere. So I told my wife, find us a country anywhere in the world to move to. Don't care where it is, but I want it to be English speaking, safe, and close to the United States. I never forget, 3 weeks later, she came back and she said, Dennis, she says, I found us a home, we're moving to Belize. And I said, where's that? I had no idea.
Nice.
Yeah.
I found us a home, we're moving to Belize. Yeah. Awesome.
And then she told me, she said, it's actually Central America. And I'm like, no way. I said, you're crazy. I was like, all I could picture is Che Guevara in army fatigues and bullets strapped across his chest because, to a guy who was raised in Michigan, with a conservative father, the world's dangerous, except where you live, right? And she goes, no, you don't understand. It's part of the Caribbean, and it's safe, and all this and that. I said, look, I'll go down for 3 weeks, and I'll check it out. So that was 11 years ago in July.
Oh, an extended vacation.
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you're
it took 3 weeks.
It's a 3-week vacation.
Yeah,
just
I gave her that,
Yeah.
all right. And within 3 weeks, I was so convinced that we went home, sold off everything. I quit my job. I walked away from my job of 11 years. And didn't know what I was going to do down here, but no, I'm fairly intelligent. I could find something,
Right.
And came down here a year later, and that was over 10 years ago. I've been here ever since.
Nice.
And now this is home. When we go to Michigan, we don't say we're going home anymore. We say we're going to visit family.
Yes, exactly. This is nice. I know my wife is coming, and for the first time in a few hours, and I know she's going to leave kicking and screaming because, but for those of you listening, if you've never seen this place, you would not believe places like this still exist.
Absolutely.
Wasn't that like the first thing you were thinking when you got off the plane?
Yeah.
Mind you, the 4-seater plane.
Yeah. And it's neat because it's like going back in time. And I tell people what you see, because first timers here always have a different viewpoint of the island. Either they love it that it's not developed and all nice and clean and pretty and everything is just so like in Palm Beach or Palm Springs, right? Or, they make the comment, well, how come more of the roads aren't paved? Or how come more stuff isn't developed? So they always got those two different views. This is an island that is just at the cusp of seeing some major growth and development. So, guys like us, we can come down and get in the game early. I mean, imagine buying Apple stock when Apple wasn't even heard of, or buying up land in Palm Beach when it was all swampland and people are crazy. I mean, that's where the island is today. So what I think is really neat, it gives people like us who have the vision to get in the game now, and also to help our clients get in the game too. I mean, all my clients, I love them dearly, and I think it's fascinating that I get to help people not just buy a vacation home, retirement home. I help people to be able to provide a way to provide some good, solid return on their investment for the future, much more than they can get in many investment vehicles in the state. So I just love my job.
Yes, and it comes through clearly. I mean, with the views you got all day long, how could you not? Now, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, what would be the best way to do that? You mentioned an ebook earlier, website. How would you like us to contact you?
Yeah, my main source of contact is email. Don't call because I do travel a lot. So if you call my cell phone, it might go to voicemail. Who knows when I'll get it. Definitely email me on my personal email. It's Dennis K-I-I, so Dennis K-A-Y-I-I, two letter I's, at gmail.com. Check email all the time. And my ebook is just now being sent to the editors.
Gotcha.
It's 150 pages of solid text. And here's the reason for the ebook, Jay, is that some people get on the internet, and the internet for Belize is a poor source of information because a lot of websites aren't maintained properly. They contain outdated information. They're incomplete. And so what I've done now is I've compiled an accurate, up-to-date book containing all sorts of things like IRA purchases, IBCs, how to open up your offshore accounts, how to make sure you have secure title, what about financing, all those questions that people have, I've compiled into one source. I update it regularly, and I'll give you the website to that here. It's www.belizerealestateexpert.com. So that will be going live here in the next 30 days, and hey, it's a service that I can provide to my clients.
Excellent. I definitely appreciate your time. Don't want to keep you too much from the sunshine. But ladies and gentlemen, we've had our time here with Mr. Dennis K. If you've ever seen the show House Hunters International, you actually already know what he looks like now. You've heard him here in person as well. And if you're ever in the neighborhood, as you're on your way to groceries and you feel like you want to go somewhere fun, feel free to stop by Ambergris Caye. Say hi. They're the first realty you'll see right outside of the airport, and it is an awesome place to be. So with that, Dennis, I'd like to thank you for your time. Is there any last thing that you want to say, either to that brand new person who's looking to go offshore for the first time, or the experienced person who you obviously deal with?
The one piece of advice I would give is before you start doing too much emailing and asking too many questions, attend one of my webinars. I host live webinars every week, and I put them together specifically to answer the basics. You shouldn't be asking questions about the details until you know the basics, right? So attend one of my webinars. They're free. I never charge for them. They usually last an hour. I take live Q&A at the end. If a person really wants to know about Belize, attend one of those, and then they can decide for if Belize is right for them.
Excellent. And how would we find that webinar, sir?
Go to my website, www.remaxbz.com.
remaxbz.com. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dennis K. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
All right. That's going to complete the interview for, this particular episode. But let me ask you this. What are the 3 things that you took away from that? I know one of the biggest things for me, as you heard me mention, was simply the fact that no matter the location, there are so many things that are similar. For example, you don't necessarily start your investing by looking at property first, but how many times have we all done things like that? But again, it's a fundamental rule of building cash flow is that it has to be built on a business model that you actually want to do and or support or be most like or capable of serving. And being able to learn that is the challenge. One of the other things that I hope that you were able to hear or see in this particular episode was just the fact that you can't do it alone. I mean, yeah, you may want to try to do everything on your own, but there is information out there, and you have to learn how to ask the questions and find the individuals that you know so that you can get reliable information that has the ability to help you produce a profit. And then probably the funniest piece was just specificity. Specificity is important, and getting that clarity of purpose and vision is what is necessary in order for people to understand how to help you. Yeah, you say today, I want to build cash flow. I want to do real estate. I want to do these things. Okay, that's great, but that's still too general. What customer do you want to serve? Where is that customer? What type of property does that customer want? And are you the best person to rehab or find it new or retail that type of property? All of those questions and more make up what I've always called your investor identity. And you must be clear on your investor identity before you can have someone help you understand what's available in the marketplace. And keywords here, because we all ask it, is this a good deal? You don't know, I don't know, unless your investor identity is clear. Well, that's going to do it for this particular episode. Hopefully, you were able to glean some information, some thoughts, some ideas that are going to help you further your cash flow, whether that be in the US or your home country or somewhere else. The point is that you can always find a way to have cash flow continue to come to you and be built. This particular episode, hopefully you enjoyed, because again, you can get to, you hear me learning as we go, and most importantly, we're all learning together. We're in this thing, and we're all lifelong students anyway. So looking forward to talking to you again soon, and until next time.
Thank you for investing your time with Jay Massey and the Cash Flow Diary. When you have a moment, please visit iTunes and leave a positive comment about the show. And go now to our website, cashflowdiary.com, to take advantage of our free business building course, Cash Flow Foundation. Gain the knowledge, understanding, and skill that will teach you how to never need a job again. Until next time.